platform that connects to device networks, regardless of what those devices actually are, for centralized monitoring, management, and control.
I'm Ilya Pavlov. I'm a venture capital guy, and so I do have a profound experience investing in energy efficiency technologies, which so far one of the cornerstones in the smart buildings. I'm happy to be here.
Good afternoon. My name is Banyan. I'm Director of Sustainability at Affordability, a real estate, publicly traded real estate company with properties up and down the West Coast and major markets in Seattle, San Francisco. And if you can't hear me, I'm sorry. I started with my voice.
Just in the soft voice. So please listen carefully. Okay. I'll remind you of that. Where's all this headed? What is the future of smart buildings and from an energy management and a control perspective?
Sure, no problem. I think the future is fun to think about when it comes to a smart building. I like to think that the building itself is it's organic, it's alive, it's awakened, it is providing a frictionless experience for the people that are occupying that space, and then for the people that are maintaining it. In other words, the building is self-healing. It is telling people that need to care for the building when there's problems, with the least amount of friction possible.
So I like to think about future of the smart building as a building blocks of smart cities, because smart city is very, very difficult to create actually, and we need to downsize it. And what is probably the minimum block in the smart city is a kind of building. So if you make it smart enough, if you provide the interconnection of those, that probably this is a good way to do a big scale with smart city.
I think it's going to be similar to what's happening with our utility. It's going to start to decentralize a little bit. We're going to have smart buildings, smart cities that are kind of operating on a more manageable scale that can connect out to a bigger system and provide that data and those interactions, but are operating on a smaller scale.
I thought what you said about organic was interesting too, because I think that previous session about how the water systems are changing even within buildings, how they're really just more fundamentally more efficient, more intelligent, and using, making it comfortable and making it useful for occupants and the environment as well. All right, so one of the things we talked about when we chatted ahead of this panel was kind of the unexpected things dripping off the IoT technology. Do you want to jump into that, anybody? Steve had a comment on that? So this would be kind of the surprise that you get from the technology that goes into the smart building.
Right. Well, I think that maybe one way to address it is, so we've built this platform that can be applied to lots of different connected endpoints. And I have been surprised at how our customers end up using that platform. I think one of the things, if I think about a connected building and all the intelligence around the data that we're absorbing, whether it's access control pattern, data that we're receiving about who's accessing that property, a great solution that might drip off of that's unexpected is you can start to use data and the trends and the patterns of access control data to begin to predict when you have occupants that are prepared to leave. Like if you're renting space to a tenant, you might be able to start to predict without humans actually watching this when they're about to leave. We've seen this, we've got a deployment in the self-storage space that has to do with self-storage properties and managing the systems that make up a self-storage property at scale, 35,000 connected locations into one hub. And what we're able to tell that industry is you don't have to have someone there that's watching consumers or engaging with your consumers. You can watch their access control patterns to understand when they're really using the space, but also more likely when they're about to leave. So if that's an unintended positive consequence of IoT.
Sorry. But I would say, we initiated our IoT system from a security standpoint at Affordability, but of course that is not my bread and butter. I definitely live in the environmental sustainability space. And so the benefit there is that data we're getting from all these different usage. So basically, one example would be one of our buildings in San Francisco. They fitted the IoT systems with the existing tenant, but also have access to their bike storage facilities. And for us, that's great because we now have a little bit of data of how much people are using those facilities, right? Which plays into my planning for transportation and reducing cars trips to that building, things like that. So So having that extra data and how people are using the building outside buildings, outside of the traditional car and driver and things like that is really useful to me and a benefit of the IoT system.
Yeah, one kind of follow up on that, are you seeing in that transportation perspective, some cities coming together to at least gather that data or work with buildings, or is that still?
I have been that, but it's not there. I mean, the city of San Francisco requires stratification surveys, which is a very manual and time-intensive process. So I think as we start to get into these things and we're able to have that building automation and that data there, we can use that to communicate directly with the city or other entities to provide that data.
I think that's one of those common things that is one of those promised benefits of smarter buildings, smarter cities, smarter transportation. We're still not quite there.
We're not there.
Even in these modern, advanced cities and like San Francisco. All right, Gillian, did you have a comment on that? Or?
So probably I look a little bit different on those issues because I look at the products and especially in the companies from the investment perspective. And I was pretty much surprised that when we started to look at those things in back 2012, 2013, and then the most successful companies became not the product companies but the platform companies. So because they started with let's say, with smart lighting solutions, which in some years became the platform for many other sensors, many other solutions, which you didn't expect from the very beginning, as Steven mentioned. And so those companies, they became big. Like, for example, we do have an experience with this company called Enlightened, which was acquired by Siemens later on. And so these guys, they started from pretty simple solution, lighting based on our presence of the person. So very, very easy ones. And then they ended up today with a very versatile system with many other sensors embedded and many solutions based on the data they generate. And this became a truly platform solution. And this helped Siemens to came back into the lighting business after they discarded Osram. So that's very surprising. Then started from very little thing, like in 5-7 years, it became a big issue.
You touched on something there too. I think maybe we want to explore a little bit about who owns this data in this more complicated, smarter building world. I mean, is it the owner of the building? Is it the tenants? Is it maybe a utility from an energy manager? Talk a little bit about the data issues that surround smart buildings and where you see it now, maybe where it will be in the future. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, for us it's a big issue, right? So again, we started our IoT to start putting that water because of building security, and a big issue around that is who's owning our data. We, as a sustainability team, are constantly proposing these new technologies that come in and need to tap into this system or that system, and those vendors have that access to what's out in our building data that we're not necessarily controlling. So it started security, like when it comes to these buildings that we want control of that data, we're happy to share it, but we want to be able to manage that. But then when we get down to the tenant level, there are building systems and technologies that they want to manage that data in. And how do we partner with them to make sure they have access to what they need? And we're providing them a building environment where they can be as innovative as they want, but also manage that data, that flow of data. So that's something that we're kind of working through right now. But for us, it is we want to be able to manage that as much as possible and work with our partners to share data. We're very sharing, but we want to be able to control the data that's ours.
And as you said, you mentioned the security piece too.
Exactly.
We want to make sure that it's well worked out. Steve?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a complex issue. It's certainly but really when you think about what we're trying to achieve here, that at scale, when you think about a facility like this that is made up of many, many different systems, the only way that IoT plays an important role in achieving the goal of a frictionless experience for those who occupy the space is to share data, to share integrations across systems so that you can collaborate. Now, I think that there are certain cases where you have to segment certain portions of that data that for privacy issues, for security purposes, like someone was talking about earlier, and you have to carve that data out. But I think to fully embrace the potential, I think that we have to have an open mind towards making that data accessible for all those that are using the technology, that are occupying the space. I think that's where we will maximize our value. I like to think I know one of the things that you're prepared to talk about as well is, it's one thing to have a smart lighting system in a building that has a really great, robust back-end monitoring platform. You can control it. That's interesting and it's valuable, but it's much more valuable if that system also has a relationship to the heating and cooling system and the plumbing system, and that you can correlate actions and reactions across those different systems. And so I think these closed system mentality, I think we have to focus on breaking those dependencies.
I think those silos are still there in many cases. Billy, did you have a comment on that?
I would make a comment about the data ownership probably from the money-making side. And it was a very hot topic a couple of years ago and probably last year when the blockchain was everywhere. And people tried to actually make this private data tradable, attaching them to the person or organization who generates it. But I didn't see any big and successful cases making business out of it. Even earlier, back to probably 2014 or 2016, a company called Power, which was acquired by Oracle. So they made a very good example of, let's say, generating value out of the data. What they did, they provided some devices to the households, and then you have to include this device in the power consumption cycle. And then they tell you, okay, if you want to use your washing machine right now, it's going to cost you that. And if you do it later on, you're going to save this amount of money. And then using this data and then actionable insights from the households, they virtually generate a lot of power. And actually, the whole system, when you provide to many households, it became kind of, you save power. This is more or less the same way as you generate additional power, which wasn't just uselessly used before. And then these data actually generate real money, and it was a big success. So I think the data ownership and how you make use of those data and how you make money and what is the business case you're making based on those data, this is going to be a big thing.
That's a good example. Let me ask kind of a similar question. What are some of the companies, or can you name examples or case studies of companies that are doing kind of cutting edge or see that future of smart building?
I don't know if I have an example. I mean, I hope we're cutting edge.
Yeah. Well, you can use yourself, that's fine.
But I honestly, I don't have enough measure of where other folks are in this space. I mean, again, for us, I believe it to be cutting edge because we are doing a little bit of what Steve touched on is we're using this to start to integrate our systems instead of having a lighting system, us putting by one vendor and managed by one vendor, kind of operating on its own, and our building engineers and operators having to deal with that system and then try to manually coordinate it with what's going on with the HVAC system. We can integrate those systems and start to manage them together, which we're seeing big energy savings. So that type of stuff I think is cutting edge for me, and we're really excited because there's a lot of great technologies out there that we can make better use of as we start to integrate our systems.
That's a good case. You talked a bit about that integration. Are there measurable ROIs on that for you? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Either from energy savings or real dollar savings?
I would say definitely energy savings. I don't know if we approach this again from a very security. We want to shore up our systems in our buildings from a security perspective. So it wasn't initially from a place of let's look at the ROI on energy savings on this, but we are seeing as we track the energy usage in all of our buildings, we benchmark across our portfolio to see how our buildings perform year after year. We are seeing where we're making those investments in those buildings, we're continuing to see energy reductions. So we're also putting in other technologies in those buildings, so I can't suss out what's related directly to that integration versus another intervention, but
Yeah, yeah, sure. I think the one that, since I mentioned it earlier, the self-storage project that we did is really interesting to me because it was, I knew nothing about this industry. Clearly, we knew a lot about technology, but we didn't know what kind of market the self-storage industry was. I mean, and actually, for those of you who don't know, the self-storage industry is this amazingly complex and lucrative business to be in. And when we started to look at IoT and its application to that market, if you think about a self-storage facility, you've got typically your experience is if you want to rent that space so that you can store some of your goods, you'll walk into an office that's on premise, you'll talk to a property manager, you'll sign a bunch of paperwork, you'll give them a credit card, and then you'll effectively enter into almost like a lease, and you'll start to rent space. And then at that point, your experience is you go to the property, you drive your car, you're in your access control information, you get access to the property, and then you load all your stuff up and you forget about it for 8 months. Well, as I started to meet these guys, one of the things that they are very cost conscious, and they're constantly watching power consumption to make sure that these self-storage units are cooled. You've got wine that's stored in some of these facilities, you've got perishable goods, those systems have to work or they have some liability issues. You've got security problems. You have people that actually will access these properties and sleep in self-storage units, which I knew nothing about. They call it dwell time. You've got, and then you have this need for those. They all realize that a property can be completely self-service, meaning there's no need for a property manager. You should be able to have a consumer look at their phone, look at the available self-storage inventory, rent it right there, accept the terms of the contract, automatically be loaded as a customer into their platform, and then show up on property, you enter your access PIN and you have access, and then the place the building and the space is ready to support you as a customer. They don't need a property manager. So there's these opportunities to run a more efficient operation, but that requires IoT-enabled technology. And then there's this drive to go to more of a self-service model, which requires smart technology to remove the human labor part of managing a property. And so the transformation, we have connected HVAC systems, thermostats, irrigation systems, solar arrays, all this technology into one platform to give both the operator of that facility a single pane of glass to literally know everything that's going on. And that's in my mind, that's very powerful stuff.
So like a robotic building.
Yeah, there's really no need for a tenant, a property manager.
You have a question, go right ahead.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up on that. I'm curious, as you're talking to building owners and managers, are they at a point where on average they're starting to be able to envision this sort of the self-healing, automated, run by itself, future of property management 2.0 kind of thing?
I love
or
that.
are they still buying like access control and then they're pleasantly surprised by all the
No, I think you're hitting on a really important point, I think, which is, from my view, you look across all these different industries and you think about IoT can be applied to everything. But what you realize is when you start engaging with these different market segments, that they each have their own sort of sophistication and maturity around their thinking and knowledge of what IoT is. That's number one. But then two, what's the value proposition once I apply IoT? And so a lot of our friction in our sales process or our go-to-market is just what you described. It's like, are these guys even aware of what you're talking about? When we enter those conversations, I think that we are becoming much, we're first of all surprised at how fast they can embrace this. They're so focused on cost optimization and reducing their cost profile and maintaining the right customer experience that the moment you can show them that, boom, they've embraced it. Now, technically, they have no idea how to do it. They depend on you greatly. But I will tell you, if you present it, in my experience, if you present it the right way, you educate them on what IoT really technically is, and then two, you help them shape the value proposition in economics and customer experience, you get to the right conclusion. So, yeah.
Anybody else with a question? Touches on sort of that IT, OT, and a specialization in terms of verticals. Okay, there's the storage business, and then there's retail, and there's other building operating in different commercial sectors. Can you talk a little bit about how you bridge that, or what you see the technology bridging that IT, OT friction, if you will? It's pretty. That came up earlier today, and I just wanted to throw that out there. How are you seeing that? Is it being bridged through these technologies or not?
just a quick remark.
Sure.
Actually, I haven't seen such a brilliant cases when the technology bridges those, because it's still a pretty big gap as of today, and everybody's talking about that. And but what I see that successful companies, actually, Steven gave us a good example. Successful companies, they work with their customers, not focusing on the technological edge, even if it's cutting edge technology, but they're actually trying to get into those operational issues which their customers do have, and trying to make it the simplest way to apply their technology and to answer those business issues. And this is actually probably which bridges the operational technologies which are coming from the customers and the technological things which are coming from the technology providers. And the simpler you can do this kind of bridging, the better. You have to deliver the answers for the very simple questions of the customer, even if the technology is complicated.
Maya, since you're in that building world, tell us about how that works, IoT.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And that one, you have to, I think when you approach a building owner, operator, manager, you have to be very keenly aware of what kind of benefits they're dealing with. So, storage space from commercial office to retail, there are a lot of similarities in possible operations, but there's also differences in touch points and priorities. So when we look at, what's going on with the commercial office space, the human experience and how our building engineers engage with it, and the type of the property management teams brings to the building. Our tenant base is crucial. So how are we not only supporting them what they do and making it easier? Because our property managers deal with 20 different things in a day, right? So they're not only dealing with the building systems, they're dealing with random complaints, they're dealing with outdoor security, they're dealing with the plants in the building. So we want to bring in IoT to make their job easier, so they have a little bit more focus on things that tenants are complaining about. But also really coming in and understanding the nuances of a commercial office space versus a retail space is really going to help you solve an IoT system. Understanding what the difference is between a residential property and a commercial property. There's a lot of little small issues that people who are approaching something with an IoT system needs to be key.
I think there's also, in that sense, too, a lot of sort of education needed or information, and people have they come from different places, and they may not have the understanding of the technology of the process.
Absolutely.
We've been given about a couple minutes. We've got time for a couple questions, at least one. One question, anybody? Just nobody? Oh, right here, go right here.
I have the question to Steve, but are there any use case of reducing the effort for the maintenance of the equipment itself, like the function of the air conditioning units or something like that, by using the IoT technology?
I have to admit that I didn't catch all of that.
Use cases.
The use case. Because you mentioned about the developers doesn't need the property manager like using the IoT. But I'm more concerned about the maintenance side of the building services. So if there is any use case of
Absolutely. So preventative maintenance and predictive maintenance is a huge buzzwords really for IoT folks like us. But the reality is, I can give you one example of where we've applied this that is a real world use case for to answer your question. We have a customer that has they do industrial storage, cold storage. So they build engines that are the size of this podium or this platform here that occupy large rooms that pump cool and freezing air into very large facilities, food redistribution warehouses, manufacturing plants, things of that nature. And on that technology, there is, so imagine huge chunks of steel, like big compressors, and they have sensors that measure vibration. So we've connected those sensors into the management platform that we provide. And what we track is those vibrations over time. And so we sort of have your best case scenario, so of what an ideal situation is. And then we're constantly measuring real time the reality of that map to that best case, and then we're trending that data over time, so that, because we know once we get under a certain variation, that's typically a sign that there's some sort of maintenance that will be required in the future. So then at that point, we'll automatically dispatch a technician that will then go and perform preventative maintenance to get the vibrations, whatever the source of the issue is.
So what you're saying is more proactive.
Proactive.
That's still fairly cutting edge in most buildings, right?
I would
Or
think
process.
so. I'm actually, for a lot of equipment like that, there is a lot of technology that's monitoring. What I'm finding is I'm actually surprised at how good the visibility is into that equipment, but only locally to that piece of equipment. They have a control system that sits right on the surface of it. But what they don't have is an over-the-top view of each of the facilities where that technology is deployed, so that you can then measure vibrations across not just one system, but 1,000 systems. And so then the intelligence that you have is obviously, okay, based on not just the data of one bad actor, I've got the data across 100 or 1,000 units, then you can get some really meaningful results through that.
We got one other question, but are we being cut off?
Just one more question. Well, he's been here all day, so he's alive.
Okay.
How do you secure it? Is that the question? Yes.
Obviously, there's a theme to my questions, right? And it's kind of more around security. But as the need to integrate or have an integration platform with these IoT devices continues to grow, I mean, is there a way that you guys are addressing the security limitations or methodology on how you implement this great technology, but in a secure format, as you guys deploy this throughout your enterprise? Just curious.
Yeah.
I guess, so basically, the way our IT department has approached it is that they've created, and again, I'm not going to profess to be an IT expert or IT expert, but basically they've set up so that we have our own personalized system, basically, that everyone is going to plug into. So we're controlling the access everyone has in our building systems. So we're managing that. So again, we're going to be sharing with our data, but we're going to ensure that everyone who wants to do anything in our building is going to get a personalized access code. And there's an offboarding process for that, right? We have different vendors and technicians coming in all the time. So they're going to all be assigned a personalized code so that when they're coming to the building, we know who's there, who's messing with our systems, essentially. And then when it's time for them to leave or we're no longer using that service or that particular vendor is no longer part of our service package, we're able to track them and cut them off specifically and keep better security that way. So it's akin to a personalized VPN is how it's been explained to me. And it seems to be working really well.
So you enforce the security paradigm, if you will, around
Exactly.
all the data and the connections to the building
Exactly.
process.